problem from running from work is it just starts on an uphill.
Exactly. Everything starts on an uphill in Jackson. No warm-up.
I know.
So how often do you do this a week, would you say, in general?
This trail I use probably 4 or 5 times a week.
Yep. That's where we always see each other.
I know, exactly.
That's why I'm so excited, because I'm like, well, I always see Amanda, but I really don't know much about her.
I know.
And I gotta find out more about her and coffee.
Yep.
Two-time Bighorn 100-mile ultra champion, head coffee roaster for Snake River Roasting Company. Amanda Sullivan, welcome to the Cool Impossible Running Show.
Awesome. Thanks, Eric.
I'm so excited. You know, we both live in Jackson, and the most we see each other is a high five or a fist pump crossing each other on the trails, or if it's in the winter, we're all bundled up and we don't know who it's. Maybe
exactly
that it's one of us until we pass each other. Then we like turn around and yell hi. So I'm super psyched to have you on and learn so much about your running and your coffee roasting. So I think one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, other than all your great accomplishments, is that I want to learn more about coffee. And I don't know a runner who actually doesn't like coffee. So we're going to dive into running and roasting. But I kind of stumbled on some of your stats in doing the research for this, and this is unbelievable. Okay.
Thanks.
And listen to this, you guys. Since 2010, and this is according to Ultra Sign Up. So all your races on Ultra Sign Up. I know you probably have local ones that are on there, but since 2010, you've raced 33 races on Ultra Sign Up. 15 of those races you've won.
Wow.
9 of those races you've come in second or third.
Wow.
And this is not in your age group, this is overall. So 24 out of 33 races you've raced, you've podiumed. So that's 72% of the time you toe the line, you're towing that podium.
Yeah.
How did you get to this point? Take us back.
I mean, the first trail race that I ever, race at all, actually, that I ever did was the Snow King Runner's Hill Climb. That starts at the town square. It doesn't anymore, but it started in the town square, and then you run the half mile on pavement up to the top of Snow King. And my goal was always to win that. When I realized that I was kind of competitive. I actually have never won that race, which is really funny. But yeah, so I kind of just realized that it's what I like to do and like to push it. And then just kind of started adding distance. And then the first longer trail race that I ever did was the 25K of Vaquero Loco down in Afton, put on by Ty Draney, and had no idea what I was doing. Bought a hydration pack. Samson, sorry, that's my dog. Bought a hydration pack the week before, put water in it, saw what noon tablets were, didn't really know what they were, put one in my hydration pack, didn't drink anything, didn't eat anything, and still somehow ended up third. And then so after that, I decided to just keep adding distance and did the 50K of that 5 years in a row, and then just kept adding distance, and also just realizing that I'm okay at running.
So take us up to that first race at Snow King. What were you? Did you run in high school? What was that pre-Snow King first race running Amanda like?
Yeah. I played soccer pretty competitively. I wasn't very good really, but I was pretty into it, realized I was super competitive. And my senior year of high school got recruited by Jeff Brazil, the current running coach. That was 21 years ago. He's still here.
Still there.
And got recruited to run cross country. And I mean, by standards now, it's not very fast, but back then when, it was running pretty fast times. And
so
he
saw you out on the soccer field and says, I need that girl on my team.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe just word got out like, I don't know, this girl's a little weird and likes to run. So, yeah. And then after that, I went to school down in Denver and just kind of ran to stay in shape. And so my only thing I did was run the runner's hill climb. And I think I had run it a couple times, maybe once in high school. And then every summer after that, I don't know. I think I've run it like 12 times or something like that. And yeah, I just kind of realized that I just love to run. See?
All right.
On it. So if we're having a bad day.
Now, do you actually stop and put a heart rock on the rock?
I have before, yes.
Nice.
And in the spring, all of them fall off and I've put them back on.
Nice. The caretaker of the heart rock.
Yeah. Puts you in a good mood no matter what.
So, why do you love running?
So many reasons. Just the freedoms of getting out on a trail and letting everything go. Obviously the fitness but mostly just being alone, being with yourself, even when you're with somebody, while you're running, you're going through your own struggles, physically, mentally, all of that. I used to just be about competition, and I'm having a kind of like a teeter-totter right now of like, why do I run? Is it to compete or is it just to run? So, yeah.
And do you think how has that competitiveness maybe changed or become something that is different than maybe it was when you first started, or maybe there's just more thought that went into it?
Yeah. I think before, when I first started racing and then was kind of like in the peak of it, I cared so much and it was the only thing that mattered. And it was more of a sufferfest. And these last few years, I kind of have learned to let things go, and whatever happens. And having a better attitude has helped a lot and helped my results. And in training, like if I missed a run, I was so upset. I lingered on it forever instead of just moving on. And now if I don't get to run for many of life's reasons, it's okay.
In all my years of coaching, every so often I run across really, really good runners who had soccer background or, a football background. I think there's a lot to that as far as, which brings me to the next question of how would you characterize or describe your running style, and maybe how has growing up in Jackson fostered that style?
Yeah. I mean, I think soccer had a lot to do with cultivating my running style, and mostly in like grit. It made me tough. Like I just
that's a great point. So, probably the majority of the people watching this are runners, and they can get what grit means, maybe with an ultra or a marathon or, even cross country. How do you need grit playing soccer?
I mean, it's physically tough and also mentally tough, and just pushing, like, I mean, if you're losing a game, well, it's also really interesting working as a team and finding that grit and using it to like uplift your teammates. I was team captain or co-team captain, and I think that honestly it was because it was like I was able to dig deep when we needed to, and instead of just being like, well, we're losing, or well, let's just call it a day. I would just find like that last gear,
right?
Even if like just to finish a game strong, whether we were losing or not, and trying to keep things positive. So yeah. And then I think it transferred into my running just with like digging deep and being like, oh, like this is hard, but how much harder can I push?
So how many years did you play soccer, roughly?
I played 4 full competitive years, and then kind of growing like in elementary school and middle school, I didn't really care for it. I didn't really have anything that I cared for, but
you've raced 100 miles and everything underneath that, and maybe gone longer. That's something I don't know about, but growing up in a team environment, when you started distance running, was that a revelation of, ooh, this is much different than team sports, and this is something I really like? And or is there certain aspects of that team environment that you miss?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I did like about it when I first kind of started running on my own, I mean, cross country is great because you are still part of a team and you're working for a goal for your team, but it's all based off of your individual performance. And so I think once I started just running on my own and signing up for more races, I kind of already had that like, this is just for me mentality. I don't know if that makes sense, but I kind of liked leaving the team aspect, because then also if you don't reach your goal, you're not letting anyone else down.
Right.
Too.
Right.
So
right. And on our run, you mentioned that you run alone a lot. So what's your nightmare?
Mountain lions at night or in the morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm always seeing prints.
Yeah.
Around here. But
yeah.
Like we just talked, you feel it, but I've never seen one.
Yeah.
I want to. On my terms, right?
Yes, exactly.
So
yeah.
how do you deal with that being alone?
Although I don't have it now because I'm with somebody, I normally carry bear spray in a vest.
Gotcha.
I'm very vigilant about that because it's just not worth the risk. And we live down the street from the old game warden, and he said, do not go up there without bear spray.
Yeah. Is that why you run alone a lot, or is that just a necessity because of scheduling?
Mostly because of scheduling. I mean, I do have a few running partners, and I do love when I run with them. But I just, you kind of get stuck in your groove of like, well, it's just my schedule, so I'll just go when I need to go. And but I love my running partners. I've got a couple new ones, and a couple that I've been running with for years. And when I do meet up with them, it's just great.
Yeah. So on my YouTube, I document a lot of winter running, but really paint the picture for people out there of what running in winter in Jackson Hole is really like.
Yes. Well, I think I sent you a photo of frost-covered eyelashes and frosty mustache. That was just 3 miles running to work last year. It was negative 15 or 20 degrees out. Probably shouldn't have been out, but there's something fun about it. I mean, it seems like torture, but it's also fun, and you feel very accomplished.
Moving on from winter, I noticed that with your races, you've done Bighorn 3 times, 100 miles 3 times. But other than those 3 100-mile distances, most of your racing is 25K to 25 miles. Is that out of a necessity for focusing on short distance because of our long winters and not being able to get into the mountains really until July? What's your motivation around majority of short racing? And I want to say that I'm a big proponent of that. I think it develops speed, and it's something that's kind of missed with a lot of ultra development. So, you know, looking at your development on paper, it's like, that's ideal. Is you start fast and move up in distance.
Yeah. I mean, I try to race throughout the year. I don't really have like an off season. I don't have an alternative sport that I love to do. I tried Nordic skiing for a little while and it's just not for me. I just love running year round, and to stay motivated, I sign up for races.
I actually have a race it's next week.
Nice.
In San Francisco or in Marin.
Yep.
And training for that's been super hard because here you go straight up and you go straight down. So trying to find flowy trail
right
to kind of mimic that has been really tough.
So what's your favorite hill workout as far as length or style?
Short, steep, and fast.
What's short? A minute? 30 seconds? 2 minutes?
A minute long.
Okay.
You know, between 6 and 10 of them with rest in between, going downhill. Easy.
Yep.
I have a brutal one coming up that I'm dreading, mostly because it's really hard to find somewhere where you can get 5 minutes of runnable uphill. So I've got 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 with the break in between walking down. I'll probably come here because this is a good one for that. But yeah, I have a love-hate relationship with hill workouts.
So with that,
with any speed workout,
what would be the workout you dread but might be the most important?
Oh man, threshold.
I'll try to do shorter, faster distances throughout the winter and then build up in the spring to then do my longer, like more A race distances in the early summer. And then here in Jackson, like summer is just so magical, but also it's so busy that I try to keep it open and not be training super hard throughout the summer here, because I just want flexibility in adventures. But also it's really hard for me in the coffee roasting world to be consistent with my training in the summer. So that's kind of how I've just the last few years structured training.
What does being competitive mean to you? And how has that changed maybe throughout the last 10 years?
Yeah. I mean, a perfect example is like when I would sign up for a race, it was like all I thought about. Well, it still is all I think about, but in a different aspect now, especially with longer distances. But you know, a perfect example that happened a couple years ago was I signed up for Black Canyon and I wanted to finish top 10. It was by far the most competitive race I had ever done, and I was putting so much pressure on myself to finish top 10 or higher. And the training block leading up to it, I just wasn't enjoying running, and I knew that. And then when I got to the race, I was not in my normal headspace where I was looking forward to the race. And so then I started the race and went out way too fast and just fizzled. And it was my first and only DNF. And I think it was a perfect example of like I wasn't having fun. My heart wasn't in it. My head wasn't in it. I was putting way too much pressure on. And there was just no balance in like being competitive, but also being myself. Like I wasn't running my race. I was running everyone else's race around me. So, after that, I kind of switched to this headspace of if I'm not having fun, then why am I doing it? And so every race after that has just gone gone great. And yeah, I've changed into a different headspace for sure.
And are there some specific strategies that you kind of maybe focus on daily or seasonally that you could share that made that mindset shift?
Yeah, I mean, after Black Canyon, maybe a month later, I was signed up for the Georgia Death Race, and wasn't sure if I was going to do it. And it's in like rural North Georgia, and when I signed up for it, none of my family agreed to go there with me, so I went alone, which was really funny. And I just decided to have fun with it, and just experience a new running community. I didn't know anyone there. And that's when I started writing notes or like a checklist to myself. And before I left, my oldest sister, who was at Black Canyon with me, just told me, like, just run your race, have fun, remember to eat and drink water, because that's also part of what happened at Black Canyon. And so I wrote, eat food, drink water, have fun, finish. And I ended up winning. I didn't have to make any like major risky moves. I just kind of went into it with like just a really positive mindset of meeting new people, seeing a new trail, running on trail that I didn't even know existed, and just going with it. And like, if you're just make the best of the day that you're having. If it's not a good day, then that's okay. Like, take a few minutes and recoup, and it's not the end of the world if it doesn't go well. So,
and those goals that you write on your arm and your hand, were those things that were trouble before, or are they just kind of some of the obvious stuff that we all need to do to really be successful from a running in the moment type of strategy during an ultra?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that they were struggles that I had before. Maybe I didn't realize it until I had like my lowest moments in racing while I was at Black Canyon. And so when I realized like maybe I don't always do all of those things and have fun and just enjoy my time on the trail, that sometimes you just need that little reminder. So
I think those goals are super important from how you're utilizing them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes runners maybe hear a story like that and they think, hey, at Georgia Death Race, everything went well.
Mm-hmm.
But even in the perfect of races in an ultra, there's still low points.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How do those goals then help you during those low points?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it seems so simple and silly, but when you see that written on your hand, it does remind you like, oh, I should just stop, take a drink of water, get a little snack, take a look around. Like, I mean, you're getting to see some of the most beautiful trails in the country, reset, and then keep going.
Yeah. Great.
So, yeah.
I do want to hop back to that original question, because I think it's an important one for viewers out there who are maybe thinking of doing an ultra, maybe 100 miles, whatever it is. But back to that question of, when did you realize you were ready to run Bighorn 100 miles?
Yeah.
Was it after Georgia and doing 74?
No, I was already signed up for Bighorn at that time. So I did Georgia and then Bighorn. So Georgia's at the end of March, and then Bighorn is in June. So still, I allowed enough time to recover and grow some toenails back. But
all right, so that makes the question even more important. If you were already signed up before you did 74 miles, again, what was that impetus to sign up for 100 miles? Or is it just something that you've always wanted to do, or one thing led to another? What was that decision? How was that decision made?
Yeah. So when I first started like building up my distances and races, I did many years ago, I did a race in the Tushers down in Utah. And it was 90K at the time. It's now actually 100K. I had no idea what I was doing. I don't even know what year that was, but I had no business being out there, but I survived and almost did 60 miles in a very rugged mountainous area and survived. And then a couple years later signed up for Scout Mountain 50 miler. And I loved 50 miles is like the perfect race distance. But then I just wanted to see what I could do with a longer distance, whether it was somewhere between 75 and 100. And for many, many years, Bighorn was always on my list. And that it was very clear to me that Bighorn would be the first 100 that I ran. And so when I decided to dive into it, it was a no-brainer that Bighorn would be it. So yeah. I mean, I'm really lucky. My husband has run 100 milers for a very, very long time. He doesn't do it anymore, but he is like the ultimate crew chief, and he's very efficient, and he knows when to comfort me or to just tell me to stop being a baby and keep going. So the first year was just kind of a trial run and to see, basically just to finish. And I learned a lot about myself that year, but also, like I can do it. I got terrible blisters. I honestly don't know how I kept going, but that's part of the grit is you dig deep and you just keep going. And so then I in my mind, out loud to my family, I said, "Oh, well, I'm not going for a certain time or a certain place. I just want to finish." But really deep down, I was like, I want to win Bighorn someday. So then after I recovered physically and mentally, and then the sign up opened in October of last year, I immediately signed up. And then the goal was to win it. And I knew that I could maybe place top 3, if not win, but everything, last year's race, just everything went perfect. I took the lead in the first, I think at mile 21 and kept it that whole time. And it's an out and back. So after the turnaround, you get to see where everybody is. And it just, everything went perfect. Fueling went great. My stomach felt great the whole time. My energy was awesome. And so then when I finished and won, I looked at my time and it was just over 24 hours. And at Bighorn, they have a special award called the Rusty Spur, and that's for anyone that finishes sub 24. So then this year, the goal after I signed up last October, after I recovered physically and mentally, this year's goal, I was really trying to break 24, and because not a lot of women have done it. There's just a handful, and a couple of them have done it twice. So really there's just, I think it's 6 women that have done it and only 8 times. I might be wrong on that stat, but so my goal this year was to break 24, and I was so far off.
Well, did weather have a lot to do with it?
Yeah, and so that was what was interesting about this year is I won again. So 2 years in a row, and that's great, and I'm so proud of that. However, when I crossed the finish line, I couldn't help but feel a little bit disappointed because I was over, I think I was 2.5 hours from my goal. So it's kind of weird to be like, well, I'm disappointed in my result. But yeah, I mean, it was so muddy. I'm 5 feet tall and the mud was up to my knees at certain points. So
Yeah, that was real mud. So let's
yeah.
hop back to year one of Bighorn,
Mm-hmm.
and then
Mm-hmm.
into year two, your first year of winning. You mentioned
Mm-hmm.
the first year was about finishing, and
Mm-hmm.
then you really wanted to win. So that first year that you won just over 24 hours, you had a 3-hour improvement. Was
Mm-hmm.
there a shift in training or something that you did differently? Or was it just the fact that, hey, now you saw the course, you've run 100 miles, you kind of figured that part out, and
Mm-hmm.
you just kind of that was part of the improvement, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, it's kind of everything. I mean, just experiencing what 100 miler is all about with fueling and what your body needs. I also, the first year I spent 45 minutes at the turnaround aid station at Jaws. And I mean, mostly that was because we were tending to my terrible feet. But I spent a lot of time at aid stations, especially major ones where I got to see my crew. And so the second year that I ran it, Mike, my husband, said, the non-major aid stations try to spend less than 5 minutes, and every major aid station except for Jaws spend. Speak of the devil. It's
There he
Mike.
is.
No, it's Eric Orton.
Hey,
He's
peek your
headed
head
for a
in. It's
run.
all right. We're just talking about you. Your amazing crew chief
he uh
expertise.
he actually just took off. He's, I
Oh,
think, meeting somebody for a run. So
gotcha.
sorry,
Gotcha.
Samson, come
So
here. Samson.
what is that balance of getting in and out at aid stations versus doing maybe what you need? Is that just kind of a go with it when you're feeling good, get in and out, and when it's a little bit of a low point or you need to attend to things, it's
Mm-hmm.
take the time you need?
Yeah, I mean, Samson, Samson. Hey, I think the biggest thing. So you get to see your crew 14 miles in. And then there's another huge aid station that's like at mile 30 something, but it's really hard to get to. And it's really easy to just kind of give in and sit there and catch up and tell them how you're doing. And so, and also not like, it's super hard not to get emotional as well. Like, especially when you're at a low point, that you just want the comfort from your family. So yeah, I mean, if things are going well, especially at the beginning, I think I spent maybe a minute and a half at the first aid station and just did quick refuels, grabbed some food. I mean, I still have, I pack quite a bit of fuel. So, I have what I know is going to sit well, at least for the first half. And so I'm not too worried about spending a lot of time restocking, things like that. So I fueled up at or refilled water and electrolytes every other aid station. And then at the turnaround, got some soup, mashed potatoes, got some real food in, and then tried to do the same thing on the way back, but it's when it's getting dark. All 3 years I've turned around before it gets dark, and so I mean that's a huge goal, is to get out of there before it gets dark, because you just get sucked in to sitting at a station because it starts to get pretty cold.
Right.
As well. And then, I mean, I think the first year was really into talking to all the volunteers and thanking them and asking how they were doing, and, you know, really trying to reiterate how thankful I was for them. And I ended up staying a little too long at some of them. So then second and third year was just, you know, I made sure they knew how thankful I was and asked how they were doing, but kind of did it while I was passing through. So
last question on Bighorn. Do you think that's the biggest component to making that shift from just finishing to really quote unquote competing, of that diligence and that efficiency? It's not like you're necessarily racing harder. It's all the other things that you're just becoming more efficient at.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, that's definitely true. The first year, I felt like I was racing harder. I was, you know, there were quite a few females around, and I feel like I was doing nothing but, like, I mean, we would say our hellos and see how each other were doing, but we were racing each other, and I was pushing way too hard, and that's probably where a lot of energy went, versus years 2 and 3 just being efficient and making up time at the aid stations, and just having fun and enjoying, and instead of worrying, because I don't think people realize how much energy that takes out of you.
Right.
So, yeah.
Right. Great. All right. So is Bighorn in the cards this year? Because it's coming year? No. Okay. All right.
But I have unfinished business, just not this year.
Got it. That's all right. Yeah. Cool. All right. So a little bit of shift of gears. What advice do you have or can share of how you mesh this performance mindset while still having a full-time job?
I mean, it's taken me a long time. I did a lot of job hopping. And it's not that previous employers didn't support it. But I have always tried to plan my life around, not necessarily running, but just around, what am I trying to say? My lifestyle.
We'll dive into your daily life of a roaster, but so do you, is it as pointed as you seek out a job that allows for a certain amount of flexibility, and what is that flexibility?
Yeah. I've had to find quite a few different jobs that allow that flexibility. I hit the jackpot with this one. I mean, my biggest thing is if a job starts to affect my everyday life and I'm not getting to do the things that I'd like to do, then it's not the right fit. And so it's taken a lot of time to find that. I've tried desk jobs that I thought, oh, this will be great because then I'll have more energy to go for my runs, or maybe time to train for my runs, and it ends up it's just not the case. And so I'm really lucky. Right. That's what I have now. So
very good. Okay. So if you were to write a book about your running, what would the title be?
Oh man, that's a really good question. I mean, I think you kind of came up with the exact title, and I think roasting and running is perfect.
All right. Well, let's talk about that. And my segue was that let's talk about your caffeine strategy for 100 milers.
Ooh, good one.
Do you use caffeine during racing?
Well, I do. I don't drink coffee, but I just because I don't want to mess up my stomach.
Yep.
But I do get caffeine through chews and gels. And then when I really need it through like Coke or maybe Mountain Dew. I try not to do that, but yeah, just through those. I did realize that this year I forgot to buy caffeinated gels, and I do think that affected me greatly.
Okay.
And I didn't realize it until after.
do you take them sporadically throughout the entire race, or at night, strategic times in the morning, you know, if the race is coming in the morning, or is it just based on feel?
Just based on feeling. Yeah. Okay. It's mostly I do like the Scratch Labs, the dark cherry chews that have I don't even know how much caffeine. Right. I don't want to overdo it on caffeine, but yeah.
Good. Got it. Cool. All right. So running and roasting.
Take
us through the day in the life of a coffee roaster.
Yeah. Well, at our roasting co at Snake River Roasting Co. There
it is. I bought it. I waited to this to have my sip. It's still hot.
Yeah. I just feel super lucky that it's what I get to do. I've been in the coffee world for a really long time as a barista, and kind of hit this wall of I didn't want to do customer service anymore. So I decided that I was gonna just take myself to roasting school and get certified as a roaster. And it was so weird after I kind of put that in the universe. I ran into Mark Barron, whose wife is Ruth Ann Petroff, who used to own Snake River. And I told him my plan, and he said, no. Call Ruth Ann and let's make something happen. And 2 days later I had a job.
and so I misunderstood. Is that before you were going to school, or you already went to school?
No, this was before. Yeah. So after I hadn't signed up yet, and I was just saving up money because it's it's a little pricey to do. Right. And so yeah, she taught me how to roast.
Yeah. And then these are the two roasters. So we roast in the summertime. We roast at least 1,200 pounds a day. Wow. Right now, so it's like about 600.
What's 1,200 pounds look like? Like,
or like it's what? Like filling these 4 times plus each of those 3 times.
Wow.
Yeah.
Every day.
In the summertime.
In the summer, yeah. Mm-hmm. So then, how much does it drop off in the winter?
Yesterday we roasted 600 pounds between 2 of us.
Got it. Wow.
So, yeah. This is where the green beans are stored. So, each of these are single origins. So this is from Brazil. These are from Honduras, Ethiopia, Guatemala, Papua New Guinea, Sumatra. And then we have a really good decaf. And each of these weighs like 100 to 120 pounds.
Wow.
So it's really physical.
Right, so, right. Yeah. So then how often will you get a shipment come in?
In the summertime, once a week, we get a couple pallets. And then in the winter, maybe every other week.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a really fun job. What are you doing, Dad?
Besides the coffee aspect of it, I think what I love about what I do is that it's very physical. We always used to joke with Ruthann that like it's a job, it's a gym, it's a job, it's a gym. And so it's I feel very fulfilled at the end of the day, which in the past hasn't always been the case. Right. So yeah.
And so how long do you roast a batch? Is it depending on the blend, or what does that process look like?
Yeah, so the way that we roast at Snake River is we roast each origin, so the country that it's come from. So we have coffee from Guatemala, Sumatra, Honduras, Ethiopia, Papua New Guinea, and Brazil. And so we'll roast 22 pounds of each origin on its own, and then after that is when we blend it. So after the roasting process. So that's where we get to be a little creative when we're coming up with a blend, because everything is on its own to start, and so then we get to come up with some of the blends. So that's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So quick story. A couple years before COVID, I was fortunate enough to go to India to do some run clinics for coaches. And part of the sponsorship to do this was affiliated with a coffee company. And so we went and toured a coffee plantation. And it was one of the coolest experiences of my life. It was one of the most most impressive athletic feat I've ever seen, of trimming trees. So imagine these tall trees that are a canopy to the coffee plants themselves, and they have to trim these trees by hand.
Yeah.
And there literally are these tree trimmers who climb up these trees barefoot with a machete in their hand.
Yeah.
And they're cutting all the branches to the trees to allow sunlight to come in. And it was just the most amazing experience or athletic feat I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But with that, I would imagine that there's kind of two things that happen in this operation. It's the sourcing of a bean, where you're getting it from, and then the roasting itself. What's more important from a quality standpoint, or is it both?
It's definitely both. We work really hard to find farms that are quality and also have they meet the values that we think are important for us, like being female empowerment at Snake River Roasting Co. is really important. We're an all female roasting team, and so in the farming world of coffee, being a female farmer is pretty rare. And so we've worked really hard with a company called Onyx Coffee, and they have a couple farms that are female farms. So not only
Guatemala,
are they
right?
In Guatemala, yes.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and so not only do that meets our values, but it's also super quality coffee, and we want to do our best to do justice to those farmers, because it's like you said, it's a huge operation, and almost all of it and almost all farms are basically manpower, especially for picking and cultivating the trees and everything like that. And so it's just a shame if you have these beautiful beans that have gone through so many hands, and then if you get them and then ruin it by roasting it wrong.
I'm a big espresso drinker. So what is the difference between espresso and a normal bean? Or yeah.
So espresso is actually a brewing method. So there are certain roasts or certain blends that cater to an espresso extraction better than anything else, but you can use any coffee that's been roasted, you can use it as espresso. So it's just the method in which you're creating that super potent little beverage.
So then a coffee that I buy, beans that I buy at a store that's labeled espresso, that's really not the case. It's just what they're calling it.
I mean, you can brew an espresso, something that's marketed as an espresso bean. Like we have multiple espresso beans or blends, that we think are best for an espresso beverage.
Gotcha.
However, you can brew that as regular drip coffee in your home brewer as well. It's just that's what the coffee roaster or company has decided, like, this is what tastes.
Kind of going back to wine, it's like, hey, this red wine might be great with steak.
Yeah.
But you can drink it anytime.
Yeah. But you can have it with fish if you want. Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
exactly.
Okay.
I mean, it's more of just like a suggested brew method.
So it really doesn't become official espresso until it's made proper or brewed properly. Yeah.
Brewed as espresso. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
It determines the day, Eric, what mug you use.
Kind of like a mood thing, or
yes. Yep.
Like how the run went? Like how
all of the above, yeah. So this is my favorite mug now. It changes daily. But yeah, that was a great run. So we got a great mug.
And always coffee after?
Before and after.
Okay. Coffee at home, the experience at home, and then coffee at work. Okay.
Yep. I just make an Americano.
And what officially is an Americano?
2 shots of espresso and water, and then I add a little honey and chocolate milk. Yeah.
Is that the Amanda secret blend?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But this is made with White Spider espresso.
Yeah. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
And how did you come upon this secret concoction? Was it out of necessity at one point?
Yeah, I always have done honey and milk, or I'll just drink drip coffee black. I should start brewing here in a second. Yeah, I've always added honey and milk, and then my coworker friend started buying Reed's dairy chocolate milk, the really thick stuff. So I started putting it in with a little honey stuff.
So it's basically
it's a little excessive.
Basically flavored heavy cream.
Yes.
Yeah, because I'm a heavy cream user.
Yes, I love heavy cream. Yeah. We have heavy whipping cream in there right now. So yeah, and that's my beverage.
So then, what's the difference? Are all beans a blend, or what's the difference between a blend and maybe a non-blend? Like I have your Hero Dirt.
Oh yes.
There's Amanda.
That's me.
And it says here, Hero Dirt's the name, and it's a medium seasonal blend. And then the taste notes, it's lemon, apple blossom, and cocoa nibs. So what's the difference between something like this and just a French roast?
Yep. So Hero Dirt is a blend of an Ethiopian coffee and some Guatemala, which are the single origins that we have mixed to become a blend. So if you were to go on our website, you would see single origins, which would just be that country that it came from. So you could just buy Ethiopia beans and you could just buy Guatemala beans. Or if you go into our blends, that's when you see Hero Dirt or Kirby's First Tram. And those are a mixture of multiple origins.
And what part of that process do you have a hand in as far as roasting? Do you create the blends or assist in creating blends?
Yep. So we're a really small team. There's 7 of us, and we work as a team. We try to keep it fun and playful, and we come up. So we've started doing seasonal blends, which is something new for us, and so we start with an idea for, let's say, our winter blend. We want it to be comforting and homey and rich, and so we'll do like a blind tasting where we have everyone come up with what they think that will taste like. And then we do a blind tasting, so we don't know whose blend it is. And then we decide which ones we like. So we'll narrow it down a little bit. And then when we decide on our blend, then that's when we come up with our tasting notes.
Being competitive as you are, do you have goals written on your hand to win this blend?
Yeah, always win the blend.
Nice.
So.
I've always had the assumption that a darker roast being a more intense flavor would also come with more caffeine. Is that correct or not?
That is not correct.
Okay.
A lighter roast bean actually has more caffeine. However, it's very slight difference. I mean, it's not huge. It's not gonna like, you shouldn't go out and just buy light roast now because it has more caffeine, but it, because of the roasting process. So if you think of it like a dark roast is in the roaster longer. So much like in baking, if you leave cookies in the oven longer, they're going to get darker and more burnt. And so you're kind of like baking out some caffeine.
Got it.
So yeah, the age-old debate. I don't know.
Right. Mm-hmm. One more coffee question and then a comment.
Okay.
So I consider myself a runner who focuses a little bit more on quality over quantity.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very similar in my coffee consumption. We talked on our run that I have 1 cup of caffeinated espresso, and then we'll have maybe another decaf. But I enjoy the process, and it's much more quality over quantity that mirrors my running. How is your running and coffee consumption the same?
Interesting question. I try to, it's very similar to my running right now. I get those days in where I, have my quality miles and everything just goes great, much like when I have time to sit and drink a good cup of coffee. And then other days, much like similar with each other, I'll just make a cup on the fly and not sit and enjoy it, much like, a lot of maybe midweek miles where you're just like, I just got to get these done. Right. So yeah, kind of on the fly as well. Well, kind of like today, what I was telling you before we started was, I just got miles in today because I needed to get them in before it got dark. And sometimes you make a cup of coffee just because, and you don't really finish it or enjoy it.
Right. Got it.
So
great.
Yeah.
Well, that might feed into this. But I mentioned I went to India, and I do a lot of journaling, and I looked back at some of my journal entries during that trip, and I came up with a little entry that I want to read and then get your life perspective on it. Okay. So I have to read it. So I'm going to turn away. Okay. So, coffee and running can be something we are reliant on or a calm influence on our daily discipline. The reliance on coffee gives way to a chaotic buzz. The ritual of coffee gives way to clarity and persistent thought and is the Uber driver of our daily goals.
Oh, I love that.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll piggyback off of that and think about what coffee and running mean to me. And it definitely hit home when I was in Guatemala and kind of was triggered. And I think the first thing that comes to mind for both of them is community. And even if you're a solo runner, you still need that community. And it helps fuel you. And with coffee, I think not only does it fuel you because of, the caffeine, but also, I mean, when somebody says, hey, let's grab coffee, it's because you're catching up and you're reaching out to each other, and it's creating that community, and it brings people together. And I think running does the same thing.
Wow, that's amazing. On a quick spur of the moment thought, that was amazing. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
all right, so I always end, and this is kind of a little bit more rapid fire, quicker answers. But in Born to Run 2, we highlight what we call the free 7. There's 7 things that 7 ingredients that we feel help you run faster, further, and forever. So I'm going to read, and they're all start with F's. So I'm just going to read the first word, and you just let me know how that relates to you, and I'll have a question after it. So the first one's food. Okay. So what's your go-to fuel for 100 milers, and what food gets you out of a low spot?
Soup.
Perfect. Good. All right. The next one's fitness. Your favorite workout or run that lets you know you are fit and ready.
Dreaded hill repeats.
Anywhere specific? I know you mentioned you don't run Snow King often. Where's your go-to hill repeat? Unless you don't want to give it away.
No, it's okay. Wilson Canyon. I actually did them last night.
Nice.
Yeah,
good.
That's when I ran out of daylight.
Awesome. All right, next one is form. You have great form and foot strike. Is this something you developed, or something that just kind of came naturally?
I think it came naturally.
Soccer.
Yeah, probably. But when I do find myself like in a race or even in a training run being lazy and getting tired and, tripping or realizing that I'm not, really paying attention to my body, I'll talk to my feet and I'll tell them to like go higher, or like I'll make the effort, because especially with a pack on, it's really easy to like, squinch up and get really tight. And so I'll stop and just make the effort and relax.
Love that. I love that.
Yeah. So. And I do this a lot.
Yep. Relax. Yep. Shake things out. Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Focus. One thing you hate doing that helps you running the most.
Running in the morning.
Got it. Consistency, right?
Yep.
Frequency. Got it.
Yeah. Yep.
Footwear. What shoe did you use to win Bighorn?
Both times I wore Brooks. Once it was my bright blue. Hold on. Last year it was the bright blue Catamounts, and this year it was the not bright blue Catamounts.
Gotcha.
I haven't worn these since Bighorn. I don't think I should even be touching them because they might be hazardous, but yeah. I love the Catamount.
Got it. Cool. All right. Next one is fun. On your run, you mentioned that you run alone a lot, and we talked a little bit about that earlier. Many might think that running alone is not fun. How do you make that fun? And maybe do you have some advice for those who have to run alone to make it more fun?
Well, I go the exact opposite of what most people would think. I have not run with music in probably 10 years. I think it's super distracting, especially on longer runs, to be more focused on what you're listening to rather than what you're trying to accomplish. And also I'm very lucky here with my surrounding areas, but even if you have to do a workout on a treadmill, just be in a positive mindset. It's easy to get distracted and be grumpy about some things, but yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up about music, because I got a quick story. Do you know who Rick Rubin is? Music producer, Beastie Boys. Iconic movie producer. Music producer. And so for Born to Run 2, we did a section on whether you should run with music or not. And Chris and I both do not run with music. and two of our other guests were for running with music. So guess who we got to break the tie?
Oh, interesting.
Rick Rubin. So huge music producer.
Yeah.
What do you think? How do you think he broke the tie?
I bet he does no music.
No music.
Yeah. I would think it's kind of like a chef coming home and making a microwave meal for themselves. You're surrounded by making food for people, and the last thing you want to do is cook for yourself, right? So maybe with the music, like, he just needs silence.
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
Well, and I think too, like, even when I lived in a city, like, just listening to your surroundings and not just for like safety purposes, but just, taking it all in. Here it's so spectacular stopping on a trail and hearing nothing. Even birds. And like, there's no birds.
We talked on our run, a lot of times our ears are our eyes as far as the safety. We've got to hear wildlife. So yeah. So cool. All right. Last one is friends and family. So we talked about your husband, Mike. He's a runner and triathlete.
Yep.
What are the pros and cons of having a partner who has the same passion?
The pros are he gets it.
Yep.
When I decided to sign up for Bighorn or for any race, he just gets it. He understands those personal goals. And we try really hard to be supportive for each other. I think the hardest part now is scheduling, because we both race so often that if we forget to check each other's schedules, we might overbook a weekend and not be able to be there for one another. I think when I first started going longer distances and being out longer and longer for training, but also for racing, my family didn't quite get it, and they had never really been to longer races. And so when my oldest sister and my mom were at Bighorn 2 years in a row, it made sense. They get it now.
Yeah, so that's awesome.
Yeah.
So I in starting this, I mentioned I often see you out running. We cross paths, and I often see Mike out, especially in the winter. But I've never seen you guys both together. Do you train together at all?
We used to a lot, but then just with, now that he has two more sports to do, swimming, riding, and running, really, that takes up a lot of time. And honestly, he's so much faster than me now that it's hard to even keep up, even when he's trying to run slow. Because I'm not super fast right now, especially on bike path. And so when we run together, I'm like, oh God, I can't even keep up. But he paces me a lot in races. He couldn't this year because he had just done a Boulder Ironman. So got it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
I
really appreciate your time. This has been great. I know a lot more about coffee and a lot more about you now, and we'll have to definitely plan some winter runs out there in sub-degree zero weather. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been so fun.